I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. She's the author of several books, no other than Miss Katherine Nichols.
Hello, Miss
I'm sorry.
Catherine.
Okay, great. How are you doing?
I'm great, and I want to apologize for the last 2 weeks where you missed it, and finally,
Yeah.
we are
Yes, finally.
finally we're doing your last book. We're gonna talk about
Yes.
it, and title of the book is The
Oh,
Unreliables,
yes.
right?
The Unreliables. The Unreliables. Well, I call all of my books Southern suspense with heart and humor. Um, and The Unreliables is possibly one of my more complex books. In it, my main character, Kara, is a an author, and she's kind of a I won't say she's just kind of she considers herself an ordinary person. She doesn't really isn't a big risk taker or anything like that, but she writes books about her character who's named Garnet Rivers. And Garnet is kind of this take no prisoners kind of woman, and she does all the wild and sexy things that Kara doesn't do. But at early on in the novel, Kara meets the man that she ends up marrying him. And we learned that when she was with him, she did feel like she could be herself and she could be uninhibited. But unfortunately, at the beginning of the book, we find out that he's been killed. And so, of course, she's devastated and she's not really exactly trying to find out who killed him because the police told her it was just some random act of violence. But she's trying to make sense of what he was working on. He was an investigative reporter, and what he was working on the last days of his life. And so she spends the main part of the book trying to get that balance between searching for his story and creating her own story.
Yes, interesting indeed, Miss Catherine. So the Unreliables. How did you
Yes.
crafted it?
Um, well, a lot of my books still have the theme of grief, and with this one, it was like, what? How would you feel losing someone and not having any kind of closure, not understanding what happened, and how that would affect you? So I kind of followed that question throughout the book, and my character became stronger and stronger as she went, although she was experiencing quite a few very frightening things throughout the process. So um, that's really how I came up with the concept. Now, also in the book, as a writer, she has agreed to teach a class on writing, and it's an adult class. So when she starts teaching that adult class, which she didn't really want to do, she said, "I'm not a teacher. I don't know how to do this." She We introduce a whole new set of suspects, but we also embark on another part of her journey. Continues to find out more about herself and what she can do, and she meets some extraordinary people there.
Very well said, Miss Catherine. And congratulations. The Unreliables is belong to the top 25 mystery novels of 2022 according to Strand magazine. So what are the elements that you put in the novel that make these on the top 25 mystery novels?
Well, I had a lot of, I guess, plot twists or a lot of potential suspects. And that was tricky because I didn't want to make it too twisty. I didn't want to have so many characters that you wouldn't be able to follow it. But at the same time, I felt like it was really important to be able to look, have everybody going, oh, okay, maybe the student from the class, she's a little bit suspect. And then, no, that doesn't make sense. Maybe it's her stepmother. And no, that didn't make sense. So it was really fun by creating those different characters and putting them in different settings to kind of pull it all together when we find out what really happened.
And according to Elizabeth Moore-Cross, a perfect vacation read. And why, Miss Catherine, that this novel is good for vacation?
Well, it moves fast. Pretty much a style of where most of my chapters are not terribly long because I like to stop them while you're still thinking, oh, wait a minute, what's going to happen now? And so you look at the next chapter and then the same thing happens. And because they're not horribly long, you think, well, I can finish at least one more chapter, before I leave the beach or before I go to sleep. And so,
Definitely.
yeah, I think that's what she responded to. I think in that review that it was something that it was easy to pick up and hard to put down.
Okay, and according to Dorothy Lamb, page turning mystery. Oh, wow, I love this. So, what are the elements that you put in the story that the readers glue to it?
Well, I think part of what readers respond to in this book is how real the characters are and how I think they really respond to the type of grief that my main character has. Despite the fact that she's really having a hard time with it, she's still very funny, and she has to use humor to cope. Uses humor because it's the kind of thing that always got her through every the hard times. And she also, with her character, that actually what happens in the book is the character begins to speak to her, and she's like not sure if she's really hearing the character or if she's losing her mind. But what was funny to me is one of the reviews in the Strand magazine, they said that I explored the boundary between sanity and insanity. And I thought, no, I didn't. I just had a writer who got really into her characters. So I didn't think it was strange that the characters were talking to her. Not that mine always talk to me, but it's kind of a quiet communication. And I thought that was kind of a fun thing to do. And I think people enjoyed it because it was a little different.
So, how does it feel that this novel belonged to the top 25 mystery novels?
That was a surprise to me because my publisher submitted it. And I was so excited because there are quite a few other well known mystery writers on that list. And I was very honored and very surprised to get to appear with them. And it was, like I said, it was very exciting. And I did also with that book, it was nominated for the Georgia Author of the Year. I was because of that book. And I was a finalist. I did not win, but once again, I was in with a lot of very excellent writers. So it was a real honor to me to be there. So,
Yes, congratulations, Miss Catherine. So, do you think in the future you're gonna write a novel like this?
well, I don't know that I'll write another like that, but I do have a new one coming out in September. And it is the first in a series of the what I'm calling the Lucy Howard mysteries. I would say it's lighter, and it is lighter in that it has quirkier characters. I have an uncle who is a narcoleptic, and because he has fallen asleep at a very inappropriate time, he doesn't know whether he committed a murder or not. And his niece, Lucy Howard, is an insurance investigator. She's not a private eye, she's not an amateur detective. She's just involved in this case of a doctor submitting claims for surgeries that she doesn't think he actually did. So she's working on that at the same time her uncle comes to her and says, kill someone, which she cannot believe because he's her absolute favorite uncle. And he's quite a character, and as are her parents, and she's just broken up with this kind of sleazy lawyer that we find is much more than sleazy. He's a serious problem. And she has a new man in her life that she's determined not to rush into a relationship with. It's not a romance, but there's romance in it.
Before we go on, I want to shout out to the people listening in Morocco. Thank you, Morocco, for supporting this podcast in Casablanca, Sefar. I have got 50% audience share. Rabat Sali Kentitra at 21%. Marrakesh Safi at 21%. Tanger Tuatuan Al Hosima at 4%. And last but not the least, Fast Magnus at 4%. Thank you, Morocco, for supporting this podcast, because this podcast is created to empower writers all over the world, like Miss Katherine Nichols. So, Miss Katherine, the Unreliables, when the only one you can trust does not exist, what is the best highlight?
Ooh, okay. I think one of the most exciting scenes and the most, I guess, harrowing scenes is um, Kara is at a dinner party at the country club where her stepmother has just insisted she come, and recognizes someone there who she thinks had something to do with her husband's death. Someone slips her a drug in her drink, though, and instead of finding out who that man is, she ends up having some hallucinations and causing a scene and ending up at her father and stepmother's house where she's afraid they're going to try to um, have her committed. So she calls her good friend Andy, who's a fun character, and she asks him to come and get her. And she makes one of those rotors and gets out the window, and he rescues her. So it's got high tension, but it also has some high humor in it as well. So that's a really good scene. And then, of course, there's a scene really toward the end, which is the climax. I'm not going to tell you too much about, but it's when we discover some of the people who we thought were trying to help were not trying to help, and some of unlikely heroes emerge. And in this book, I also talked about the situation of the veterans of different wars. And the United States has not done a great job of taking care of our veterans. We have some very good veteran hospitals, and we have some that are not so. So that's uneven. Our homeless population includes a lot of Gulf War veterans and even some Vietnam veterans. And so in the book, I deal with just not, it's not a whole lot of information. It's just that one of the characters is one of those veterans. And I show how human he is and how valuable he can be uh, as to our main character and to society. So I touch on that a little bit, and that's important to me.
So, Miss Catherine, the Unreliables, if you want to go back and revise the book itself, which part of the book you want to revise?
Well, had a book club that read the book, and I went to talk to them about it, and they liked it. But one lady had a lot of trouble. She said there were too many characters, and I was trying to go back and think, well, who could I leave out? And I couldn't think of anybody to leave out, but I thought maybe I could help my reader and give just a tiny bit more description of each character. But I don't know. That's such a hard question because I did understand where she was coming from. I didn't quite know the best way to help her. And then a couple of other people in the book club said no, they were fine. They they were fine with a lot of characters. A lot of books have a lot of characters, so I would at least look at it to see if I could help some that kind of reader out because she was a really nice lady.
Okay, interesting suggestion, I guess. So, the Unreliables, what do you think the flaws?
Maybe Well, okay, that's an interesting question because I have a podcast with some other female writers, and we had a guest on who he's a licensed practicing counselor, and so I wanted to ask him questions about how you could write a psychiatrist or a mental health worker, and what were some things that you shouldn't do with that character, and what it was okay to do. So I wish I had talked to him before I wrote the book because I feel like I would have handled things a little differently. The situation in my book is the psychiatrist is not what he seems to be. So it wasn't like I was saying bad things about psychiatrists, but I do think that it would have been better if I'd done some more research or talked to someone like Andy, who was the our interview, and really interesting things to say. And I might have been able to make the psychiatrist even scarier than he is if I'd talked to Andy first.
Very well said, Miss Catherine. So the Unreliables. What are your expectations?
Well, of course, all writers can see their book turned into a movie or a TV series. I would definitely say a series on Netflix, but I don't.
cross
Well, yeah,
cross
that's
my
not.
finger.
Thank you so much. Yes, send good thoughts that way. And right now, of course, with the writer's strike, doesn't it's not going nothing's going to happen. But seriously, I think, as I said, most writers would love to see their characters portrayed in a different medium because I think it would make you, aside from the fact it would be so exciting, I think it would make you a better writer because you would get to see how people developed your characters based on what you said and whether they looked like what you thought they would. I don't necessarily mean physically, but I mean if they come across the way you wanted them to. I think that would be super exciting. But unfortunately, well, like I said, we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yes, good luck for that. And let's talk about the main characters of the Unreliables.
I love my main character. She is a writer. I love her because she's vulnerable, but at the same time, she's really strong. And her mother has died when she was younger. Father have had not a bad relationship, but kind of a difficult time connecting. And her stepmother is a funny character, but also an annoying character. And some people thought, she could be even in on the plot to drive Kara crazy. So I love Kara that because she's dealing with these things. She's also very compassionate. She meets the veteran I was talking about. He comes to her house to warn her, and his clothes are not clean. He's not clean, and she's kind of afraid to even let him in and talk to him, but she decides that she she should show him the respect he's due because he fought for his country. He ended up on the streets afterward and had a very difficult life because of the things that he saw when he was fighting. So she definitely is a sympathetic character because of that. And I think that like I said, I really love her. Um, and this book does not, well, I said this book doesn't have romance in it, and one of the women at a different book club that I was talking to said yes, it does, because she talks about how much she loved her husband, and I didn't think about that, but it really is a beautiful romance. It's just sadly cut short. So of course it's not a romance, but particular the scenes that she is in with where she's remembering her husband are, I think, especially good. And the reason she feels guilty about her husband is very interesting too, and it's kind of developed throughout the book. A lot of people have survivor's guilt, and she has, really, that's what hers is, but she does have this kind of quirky reason that she thinks it's her fault. And that in itself, I think, makes her a much more interesting character and gives the plot a whole different dynamic as well.
Interesting, Miss Catherine. So, The Unreliables. Is there a sequel or prequel of the novel?
I don't think there will be. I ended it in a way that there could be, but because all she's it's not like she's trying to solve crimes or trying to solve mysteries. She's just dealing that with that one thing in her life. And I kind of just want to leave her where she was. She ends up in a good place, and the people that we care about in the book end up in good places. And I could, if I wanted to, take one of the characters that was in the adult writing class, because there are four of them and they're all very fun in different ways. I could do something with them, but right now I'm working on that other Lucy Howard series, and that one I know I'm going to write. Not necessarily a sequel, but just like the second one in the series, so that you could pick them up in different order. And I also eventually plan to write the third book in the Sometimes Sister and the Substitute Sister grouping. So I'm kind of got a lot of ideas I need to finish, and I don't think I'll revisit the Unreliables, but you never know. So
Yes, cross my finger that there will be a sequel
thank
or
you very much.
prequel. And you are most welcome to come back to promote all your books.
Well, I will love to. My newest one will be out in September, and I will let you know.
Yes, I will give you a slot on the month of
Thank you.
September.
Very
So,
exciting.
yes, before we go on, Miss Catherine, I'm inviting you to listen to my other podcast, Food 101, our third season with Chef Alessandro, one of the best executive chef in one of the best restaurant in downtown Toronto. So please do listen, Food 101. Our last episode, or latest episode, we talk about focaccia. Focaccia, people, one of the traditional or trademark of Italian cuisine. Plus one more, our books are already out from volume 1 to 7, Food 101, volume 1 basics until to 7. So please do check it out. Grab your copy, available on Amazon and leading online bookstores worldwide. Plus one more, Money Matters, volume 1, Solid Foundation is out, available on Amazon as well. It's all Money Matters Volume 1 Solid Foundation is a comprehensive guide designed to empower individuals at all stages of their financial journey. So please do grab a copy of my financial book, Money Matters Volume 1 Solid Foundation, available on Amazon and leading online bookstores worldwide. So, Miss Catherine, The Unreliables, what else you can say about it?
I think that its complexity makes it one of the not I love all my books, so it's like, who's your favorite child? But I think The Unreliables has a lot of different, not plot lines, they're subplots, but everything just comes together, I think, in a really good way in that particular book. And the people that need to be dealt with harshly, they're taken care of, and the gentle souls who are in the book, they are given the right kind of treatment as well. So that's why I think people will really relate to it in many different ways.
Yes, indeed. Miss Catherine, let's do the recap of all the books. Sometimes, sister.
Yes. Sometimes sister, two sisters. The older one just worships her younger sister. Unfortunately, the younger sister runs away with the older sister's fiance just a few weeks before the wedding. And there are some tragedies that ensue. And the narrator, who is the older sister, has to come to terms with also with her grief, but with things that were left unsaid and that she wishes she had been able to say in that book. And it's a great book because there's another sister relationship between the narrator's mother and her aunt. And there's some pretty dark things that go on in their past that I think readers will identify with and find darkly humorous. The Substitute Sister is the sequel to that. And in that one, we discover that there is a third Burnett sister. That's the main character's last name. And but but the older sister doesn't know that this girl exists. Luckily for Grace, the older sister, the her new sister is there when some really scary things happen and she's able to help out with the situation. Trust Issues, probably my most fun book in so many ways because I dedicated it to my grandmother. There's a quirky, fun grandmother in it. There are some generational issues at play. With four different women. There's also a murder. I always have bodies in my books, and so that one is about a woman who really needs to be able to trust people, and she just can't. She's always finding out things about them that make them less than trustworthy, except for her grandmother, that whom she absolutely adores, who also has a pretty interesting backstory. So that one is a lot of fun. The Unreliables, of course, we talked about tonight, and False Claims is the name of the new book that will be out in September. It's False Claims, Lies in Love and Insurance. I think all of them, even Trust Issues, although Trust Issues, it's not the main character dealing with grief. I think all of them show how devastating, of course, grief is, but how it can make you a stronger person when you learn to accept and move forward, but you never ever forget. And it's always a part of you. So, my objective there is to show how you can get through grief, but how you have to sort of accept that it will change you and that it can be something that you live with that makes you stronger.
All your four books are empowering women, right?
Absolutely.
For this 21st century, give us 5 ways to empower women.
Well, one of the things that I'm really big on is women supporting each other. And uh, the group that I'm in, Wild Women Who Write, we support each other. In our podcast, we also support other authors, not all women, but we emphasize helping women in lots of different ways. Okay, that's one. Another way that women can empower each other is to become politically involved. I think we need to speak up when we see something that we know is wrong, and we need to not be afraid to speak up. And speaking up is part of the third way, too, because a lot of times women are pitted against each other in job situations, or maybe they're not pitted against each other, but they're in the minority and they're kind of worried about speaking up and sharing their opinion. I think we need to support each other in that. And when a woman speaks up, that she gets support and acclamation from other women in the group. I think we need to start early. I think we can talk to our daughters and our granddaughters about the different ways that they can deal with society and not have to be defined in a way that unfortunately society still does. I was listening to some of the old music from the 60s, and there's so many songs where women are big crybabies about, I can't get the man I love, or I'll do anything to get the man I love and keep him. And I thought, geez, are we still singing about that? And a little bit, and we are a little bit. Some of the more modern lyrics do, but there are a lot of female singers out there, I think, who are putting forth powerful lyrics, and I think that that is an excellent way for young girls to pick up on the changing attitudes that you don't that having a man is a great thing, but having a man is not the only thing. And I feel like that's an important thing that we start early with. And I think that empowering women through early education that encourages them to think critically and question situations that we may just accept without questioning. But if we start teaching them, and actually all children, but women in particular, young women in particular, they should be not afraid to stand up and question something in the classroom, in the real world, in politics, anywhere, and be supported by other women and by men who realize that we need we need to support, everybody needs to support one another regardless of whether you're a man or a woman.
Definitely, Miss Catherine, and very well said. And thank you for being part of my podcast. Thank you for those 4 weeks we talk about all your books. And as I said, you are most welcome to come back and promote again all your books.
Thank you so much. It's been a lovely experience getting to know you.
Before you go, can you give us a food for thought?
Food for thought. Okay. I think we need to think about what makes writing, why writing is so important. And that, I mean by that, like classical writing, studying the classics, humorous writing, writing that challenges us, writing that uh, gives us an alternative view of things. And all this comes through in books. And of course, as a writer and as a former teacher and as a human being, I think we need to never ban books, teach kids to be make their own choices and think about things in a way that they'll ban their own books. They won't read it if it's not what they need, but they need to be able to be free to choose.
If you compare The Unreliables to a classic novel, which one can compare?
Well, a little bit like Jane Eyre, in that Jane has to deal with a lot of things that are going on around her. Now, you know what? I think Rebecca is more like it, by Daphne du Maurier. I think in Rebecca, the main character is dealing with a ghost, not like a physical, not like a real ghost, but the ghost of a person that she lives in the shadow of. And uh, my main character isn't living in the shadow of someone she has replaced, but she's living in the shadow of her guilt and her pain that she feels. And until she gets out from under that shadow, she can't see things clearly. And I think the main character in Rebecca, I think that she kind of experiences the same sort of need to get out from under the situation so she can even see herself clearly.
Miss Catherine, thank you for your time.
Of course.
Welcome, people. See you soon.